Hello,
Um,
this is Chiron's Cave, and I'm Aaron.
and this is Susan with Chiron's Cave. And we have an awesome and special guest, Barbara Alexander, today. And Barbara is, and don't let me butcher this, so correct me, but Barbara is a life coach who focuses, I'll let you introduce yourself too, who focuses on business and, but also incorporates astrology. So how would you describe what you do, Barbara?
Oh gosh. So it's so funny because I've evolved over the years. I've evolved my business over the years. I started out in the entrepreneurial world coaching, and then I've just added a lot of different tools and techniques to my coaching. And it is life, it is leadership, it's the whole person. It's really as we're evolving in this ever evolving world. And astrology has been a primary tool that I use to help my clients through navigating their life. And I apply a lot of the business side of astrology into their lives too. So I work a lot with entrepreneurs, and we use the stars and the moon and all those planetary energies to help them plan their business as well, and work their business.
So do
Wow.
you have your
Yeah.
own business?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So you're a
And, yeah.
consulting like astrologer for business endeavors for people who are like entrepreneurs?
Yes, yes. A lot of it is they're leaders in corporate, but probably 90% of the people that I work with are also entrepreneurs.
Leaders in corporate. How did you get plugged into something like that?
I have a corporate background. I spent 25 years in corporate. I would work for high tech companies like IBM and Compaq and HP. They all got bought out by each other at one point. And
Mhm.
then I went to the other side of the world in advertising. So I was on Madison Avenue in New York,
Oh,
running big
wow.
accounts. Yeah. So I have a big corporate network, and
Yes.
so a lot of those contacts I still stay connected to, and they're more personal relationships, and work with them for coaching and astrology on the personal side. But a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with, it's the whole person. So I learned a lot of techniques in astrology that I apply to business, like how to launch, when to launch, um, uh, how to come up with, the offers that are most appropriate for you. I actually even have created separate business charts for their business. So we look at, how you look at synergy between the relationship between people. I look at the synastry between the individual, the owner, and the business entity, as the business entity is its own chart. And I recently did some work for somebody where we looked at the potential partnership and a business. So you can look at
Mm.
it like in a tri-wheel.
Mm.
Yeah. It's
Ah,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Very
done that
cool.
once with my own business. Did a chart for
Yeah.
my own business,
Did you?
and then just
Mm.
intuitively looked at it with respect to my own nativity.
Okay.
Mm. Hmm.
It's interesting because when I cast my business chart, when I was first learning astrology this way, I've totally felt it. My business is a Leo rising, an Aquarius 7th house, Scorpio 4th house, and Taurus 10th house. And the way that I look at my business, it's a lot of Aries energy too. Aries 9th house energy is my business.
Hmm.
Nice. Yeah.
Venus and Mercury is in my business chart, 9th house Aries,
That's
right?
interesting because you
Wow.
have Palace in Aries. That's the only thing you have in Aries in your
Yeah.
nativity. So I guess you knew that. You know
Yeah.
your asteroid goddesses.
Yes, it's been part of my studies too, not extensively, but yes.
Where's that with
Mm.
respect to your business, Palace? Because I just looked in asteroid goddess ephemeris, so I don't use
Yeah.
computers for anything other
Yeah.
than this podcast. Like,
I haven't cast the goddesses in my business chart yet.
because I have
Huh.
16 degrees for Palace for you, but that's going to be like to the nearest whole degree.
That's in my personal chart. That's the only thing I
Mm.
have in
Yeah,
Aries. I have an empty Aries, otherwise an empty Capricorn, um, and Libra.
should I
unless you're tracking unless you're tracking the goddesses, yeah.
You're gonna get ran over, Susan, all this Gemini between the 2 of us. I have a
I
Gemini I'm a Gemini ascendant, so between
I
that and
well,
all
Where's
your
he was like
Gemini.
he
where's
was
your
like,
where
"So"
what degree is your Gemini ascendant?
8.
Okay, my Venus is at 6.
Yeah, I saw, yeah, you
Yeah.
have so we gotta get along.
I'm gonna put it up. You just tell me when to take this down, remind me, Erin, but I just wanna is it okay to share, Barbara, as I, like, share it without your
Oh
but to
gosh,
share
we're
your
looking at
chart?
my chart. Okay, cool. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, can you
Cool.
see it?
Yep.
Yeah,
I've had an
okay.
interesting year.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's funny that you noticed Palace in Aries. I want you to tell us about your year, and we definitely wanna hear about Chiron. Erin pointed out this morning, though, that your goddesses, like the asteroid goddesses, are pretty prominent in your chart. And so when you said that about Pallas being in Aries, that's interesting to me because with your your natal ninth house, Sun and Jupiter, that there's this repeating theme of teaching and sharing knowledge and coaching and expanding people's awareness and consciousness and really bringing them forward as they evolve and they grow. And that is you to a T in everything you do from what I know of you, right? And
Yeah.
so I just think that's neat that Pallas in your natal chart is in Aries,
Yeah.
um, because you really educating people in many ways. I mean, Aaron has a special relationship with Pallas, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
kind of on a mythical level, maybe he can say more about that. But yeah, I just think that's really beautiful.
Let me tell you what I feel. I feel like I'm finally living my natal promise. Like it's finally birthing. Because as I when Susan first introduced me to astrology, I knew nothing. I just knew that I was a Cancer. That's all I knew.
Hmm.
And then I was so curious. I used to meet with her regularly. I said we got to have another session. We met a month later. And then we were meeting every few months. And then I became a student of it. And I started to once I felt comfortable enough with it, I started to bring it into my client work. And I am so intimate with my placements and what's happening real time in the sky that it's like I feel it. And as I look now and I even when I look back and I look now and I look ahead, I'm seeing that my natal promise is actually birthing, with everything going on. So I like that you're bringing in Palace in the 6th house and how that ties to my ninth house. I've just experienced a lot. I think this year has been a huge transition for me, a huge transition and setting me up for the next couple of years because I also apply zodiacal releasing into my own chart work and into my client chart work. So I see the life chapters unfolding as well.
Mm,
And
mhm.
that's what's helped me navigate a lot of the difficult times. Like, because there've been a lot of really challenging times. I feel like, again, here we go, here we go, here we go.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
And this
yeah,
year's this year's been a good part of this year has been extremely challenging for me. So where do you
yeah.
wanna go with this? Do you wanna like I can go in any direction you wanna go.
I got all
Yes,
kinds of directions. I got notes that I took just before we started. I was just looking at your chart and some things caught my eye.
Yeah.
But like I said, I just wanna be sure like I said, I don't wanna steamroll Susan because like,
no, no, it's
uh
fine. So what do y'all think about this? Because I wanna hear, like, I want us to have a chance to look at your astrology, give you feedback. Erin has some stuff to share. I want to hear about your journey. I want to hear about your story. I want to hear about Chiron and kind of what that personal experience has been like for you. Would you rather us share kind of and talk about your chart in that context,
Yeah.
um, and then you kind of share with us about what that lay of the land has actually
Yeah.
experientially felt like and looked like? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, show me what you see and I'll add the context to it. That might be easier than me just talking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All
so
right. Well,
when did that perfect? That would have been a few years ago, right?
It was around 2015, 2016.
Uh-huh. So
Yeah.
what was do you like now with retrospect? Like what would you say your Chiron return was? Because, it's gonna be a few year process, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a 50-year orbit, so your Chiron, you're looking at what, a couple years of it being an active
Yeah.
return, right?
Yeah. So if I looked at, so I turned 50 or in 2016. It was probably around 20, I don't know the exact date. I haven't gone all the way back with the wheel, but that was about the time that a lot of my marriage issues started surfacing.
Hmm.
So, I have a fifth house Chiron.
Mhm.
And
And
I
Pisces.
yeah, so I found a lot of it related to my relationship life for sure, like my romantic life, my children too. A lot of the Chiron applied to that. And Susan knows the long story of my children, the struggles my children had. And they both have ADHD, and they went when I got divorced.
Hmm.
They went through a lot of turmoil. So I was always the one that I was the primary caretaker, and I was the one that was trying to, make sure that they were well cared for, and I helped them navigate a lot of the challenges that they had. So I feel like if you look in the wounding of it, the wounding has been around raising the children, learning from that, how I've felt in my relationship life since I was a teen. Since I was a teen, there were, and this is like, I'm really getting raw here. Like a lot,
Go for it.
there was a lot of abandonment. There were just like, relationships that just sort of like fell apart. Um,
Saturn.
and
You have Chiron Saturn, so I wanted
they're
to ask
right
you about
there.
that.
They're right there. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Mm.
love life has been hard. It's been hard. And, I had my second Saturn return this year during the retrograde cycles. It's coming back around. Um, but I'm ready for ready for the last and final hit. And it stationed direct on my Chiron. So it's all been playing out. The last 10 years, I have really stayed in touch with that Pisces house has been lit a lot. And it's been extremely active since Saturn's been in there 2023 until now. But I'm also a very self-aware person. So knowing when these cycles were happening and knowing what was being activated, I sort of knew, okay, this is something that I'm going to have to navigate. I can put a name to it, or a face to it, or an explanation to it, rather than cave in. You have the Chiron's
Mhm.
cave. Rather than like cave in, I would isolate. I would isolate, and I would work through a lot of what was coming up. And knew that this was part of my journey.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting to me, whenever I see a conjunction like that, because they're 3 degrees apart, right? Chiron and Saturn are 3 degrees
Yep.
apart in Pisces, so you can't really talk about Chiron without talking about Saturn for
No.
you, or,
No.
vice versa. Like, you can't really talk about Saturn without talking about Chiron. And so interestingly, right, in myth, Saturn, Kronos, is Chiron's father. And so I wonder, and it being in the 5th house,
Yeah.
you were talking about your kids. Did you have to, like, father your children? Was a
Uh huh.
father around for them? So
Yep.
that Saturn in the 5th is like you kinda like your and your marriage falls apart. Uh,
I was the
so f
present one. He traveled a lot. So even just from a practical standpoint, from the time that I was pregnant, he took a job where he was traveling. He was worked for the government, and he traveled. So yes, I was a mother and the father.
And he was a Pisces. He is a Pisces.
He is a Pisces. He is a
Mhm.
Pisces too. Yeah.
hmm.
And he's got his
So
Saturn
he
in Pisces,
Yeah,
seventh
and he
house.
had his ways of would you say, Barbara, that he had his ways of being kind of unavailable in a
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that you
Well,
were kind
that's
of
gonna
not
pull in, so I'm very interested in talking to you about your Pluto-Uranus conjunction because 'cause they're 2 minutes apart. Like, that's
Yeah.
almost a perfect conjunction. And
Okay.
so, and because you're Scorpio rising, these are outer planets, right? So they're gonna be more the collective unconscious typically in, like, psychological astrology, right? They're not so personalized, but in this case, Pluto would be personalized because you're Scorpio rising if we're looking at
Mhm.
modern rulership. So
Mhm.
you you can't talk about your Pluto without talking about your Uranus. and they're in opposition to Chiron and Saturn by whole sign, right?
Mhm.
Like they're just by whole sign they're in opposite. They're what? Well, Pluto's 10 degrees from Chiron. So I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
not quite. I mean, right at the beginning of orb, but I like to look at just that's a whole sign opposition, right?
Yes.
And also, let me point out too that also her chart ruler, her modern chart ruler becomes the almost like the emulsifying agent in the T square because Mars in Gemini at 23 is like seated not quite at the midpoint, but it's in a T square with
Hmm.
that opposition, right? So it's like it, even though they're wide orb in their opposition, both of those on the polarity of Virgo and Pisces are in
Mutual,
square
yeah,
to her chart ruler. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, mutable.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the moon, then you can pull the moon into that too. Like, and you got a mutable grand cross, right? With really wide orbs. Well, not so much with the moon and Saturn Chiron. That's going to be a square
Yeah,
almost
I've got
to
that I've got that T square going on with even with Mars.
so.
Mm.
And Susan brought up Mars. This was another thing I wanted to that I noticed is that if you follow your chain of significators. So either way you go with Scorpio rising, right? If you look at the ancient ruler Mars, Mars is in Gemini.
Mhm.
So that means that Mars is ruled or signified by Mercury, right?
Mhm.
So where you jump over to Mercury. Well, if you go the other route and you look at Pluto, Pluto's in Virgo, which is Mercury ruled. So either way, either ruler takes you straight to Mercury,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
then kicks you over to the sun because your Mercury's in Leo. So you go to your sun. And then when you get to your sun, where's your sun's in Cancer, that kicks you over to the moon, right? Where's the moon? Moon's in Sagittarius, kicks you over to Jupiter, who's conjunct the sun. And then you get this ping pong in between. It's like the final chain for like there's a term for it. I'm blanking, but because once you get to Jupiter, that's signified by the moon, which is signified by Jupiter because they're in mutual reception. So that just keeps going back and forth. So it's like the end of your chart is this relationship between Jupiter and the moon and the sun via
Mhm.
Mercury.
Interesting. I love the way that you painted that picture because it feels right. It really does.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
you would
told
be this,
him that you're very much a Sagittarian figure, and those two
right?
in mutual reception, the Moon and Jupiter in mutual reception,
Yeah.
really, yeah.
Yeah.
And second house moon too. Or do you do whole sign? I assume
I
since you
do whole
started with
sign.
Susan. Okay.
Yeah, I do whole sign. I studied under a woman that taught Placidus Modern.
Hmm.
So and then as I started practicing, I leaned more towards the whole sign and traditional and started to bring in a lot of the traditional timing techniques, like perfections. And I look at zodiacal releasing now too. And it just gives me such a bigger picture of what's going on. Truly, I'm in a 12th house perfection year right now, big time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you mind telling us about like where your studies and kind of your
Yeah.
trajectory if
Yeah.
you don't mind? Kind of start
Uh-huh.
start us at the beginning if you will
Yeah.
and just give us a
So
quick
it started with Susan.
Uh-huh.
And just absorbing a lot from her as I was getting my own regular sessions. And it was 6 months into that I decided to take a formal program. And the woman that I've been studying under, like for the certification, is Catherine Hawking. She's in Australia, and she has a very soulful approach to astrology and a very business approach. And that's why I lean towards. I remember sharing it with Susan. She's like, "Oh, she would be perfect for you." And I'm actually just finishing up with her because I completed basic with her, and then now I'm finishing up advanced business astrology with her. But in between, I've followed a lot of astrologers and I've taken a lot of different classes. Kelly Surtees from Kelly's Astrology, she's one of my favorites. I've been in her membership group and I've taken her timing classes. I love her teaching approach. I follow Adam Ellenboss. He's more spiritual and more philosophical. I've taken some classes from him. Um, I follow Lori Lothian. I love her world astrology, and she's like just a straight shooter. And Molly McCord, who does evolutionary. And I actually met Molly last year. We had a retreat, which I think you're going to talk to Cece Carmen Seda next month. We
Mhm.
had a retreat, human design and astrology combined, and Molly was there. So I'm a, from my chart, I'm a lifelong learner. I can't learn enough about it. Astrology is like the rabbit hole. There's always something to learn and to go deep with. So I've just experimented with a lot of different types of studies. Oh, Pam Gregory's another one of my favorites to follow.
Mm,
Old school, but she's got so much wisdom about the world that she inspired me in 2023 to really solidify this path because of where we're going as a collective.
mm,
So yeah, I've just taken in a lot from different astrologers. I've put my own, mark on it. I definitely lean more towards, and Susan and I have talked about this. I'm so much into what's happening as a collective and how much the astrology is driving that's been the umbrella of what I'm sort of stepping into now. And it sort of explains, I feel,
mhm.
my Uranus Pluto in the 11th house, right? Right. Oh, my
Ah,
progressions too. My progressed sun is in Virgo right now. It's been there for like the last 4 years or 5 years, I think.
hmm.
And my progressed moon is moving in January to Aquarius fourth house to Pisces fifth. So I'm
Mm.
actually excited about that one.
Yeah. Oh,
It's been
yeah.
heavy. That moon's been heavy. That moon's been heavy in Capricorn and Aquarius for me. It's been extremely heavy.
Mhm. Yeah, the Saturn ruled. So interesting about the 11th house too, with kind of Aaron's curiosity around Pluto and Uranus there in that 11th house, and then the role that you feel like you're stepping into as the nodes and the eclipses are happening in the 5th and 11th houses. So the South node has been transiting, and as you're aware, across that 11th house area of life for you. And would you say, yeah, with the progressed sun, even though the progressed sun isn't late degree yet, because I remember it when it went across your midheaven,
I'm
like your early
midheaven.
degree midheaven.
Yep.
So a lot has been going on professionally, and so you see yourself as facilitating an important role
Yes.
in some of
Yes.
this Pluto Uranus
Yes.
air, you know.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and it's also in my human design. So if you're familiar with I'm a manifester, and
Hmm.
I have the incarnation cross of tension. So I'm meant to
Mm.
disrupt. I mean, so when I looked at the synastry, not synastry, the similarities between what my chart was gearing me towards, and Carmen's helped me understand my human design, that this is the point. This is the point and I've just been going through my second Saturn return. Everything's so been aligned to put me in this place. It really has. So I'm starting to speak more openly and more truthfully about what's happening from a humanity standpoint and how we're affected. I'm bringing a lot of that into my work. We're talking tomorrow. We have this 2-session thing that we're doing together. And my 10th house is also, I've got my Venus, my Mercury, and my Mars progressed planets in my 10th house. I think my Mars crossed over not too long ago. My Venus and my Mercury's been in there a while. So I feel like that 10th and that 11th house have had a lot of energy, and the 5th house. Like I feel like of everything that's been going on for the last few years, it's been those three houses, and me from a 5th house standpoint also feeling more comfortable expressing myself, because I've been conditioned through the corporate world, and as I grew up in the entrepreneurial world, being taught how to do certain things, right? This is how you run your business, this is how you market, this is how you message. And I've this year has been, no, like, I do it my way.
Mm.
I'm doing it my way. And I'm more comfortable with speaking the message, letting the message land, and then who's ready for the message is ready to be part of my work. That's been a big transition for me this year.
Mm, mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you see that too unfold? I don't know. Could you
Yeah.
see that? Yeah.
I was just thinking, I was just looking at the eighth house for you being, Venus and Mars in Gemini.
Mhm.
When you were talking, about being a disruptor and you're going to do things your way. That has a kind of eighth house feel to me. Um, being just as in, truth, regardless of sort of who it makes comfortable or, not. Right. Like,
Yeah.
um, so, but also, speaking of the eighth house, like I associate sort of the Scorpio, with the eighth
Mhm.
house, and Scorpio's your ascendant. And another thing that caught my interest was Neptune, is conjunct your ascendant,
Yeah.
by 2 degrees. So Neptune, would have been, let's see, would have been rising shortly after you were born, or have had that, but no, it would have been actually would have just risen, right? Just
Mhm.
before you were born. The
Mhm.
moment of your birth, Neptune would have been visible.
Mhm.
Anyway, so they're conjunct. So, you have a relationship to Neptune that seems pretty important in this eighth house sort of ascendant, uh, eighth house being where your Mars is at,
Yep.
and Mars being your chart ruler, or even Pluto and Pluto being your chart ruler, both being in Mercury signs. So communication.
Mhm.
Mm,
So the promise of your chart seems to be, there's like a willful need, right, to communicate these deep, important truths. And I
mm.
wonder if any of that resonates with you talking about how the promise of your nativity is sort of
Yeah.
blossoming here recently.
Yeah, and it's all this year. It's all been it's been a lot of shedding of what how do I want to explain it? Of how I thought I should be speaking or how I thought I should be positioning, and I spent so much time pontificating over that and fine tuning it, and it was just like, no, like it's me. And how do I want to express myself, and how am I meant to express myself, not market myself.
Right.
Because again, coming from my corporate background, and have a marketing background. That's what I did in corporate. Having
Mm,
that traditional marketing background, now it's more of how do I want to say this? Like it's like the marketing is insignificant. It's more about the expression of myself, and then drawing in the right collaborators, and drawing in, it's happened. I mean, people have just shown up. I've been introduced to people, or people have shown up where I feel that there's been, maybe a soul connection, or maybe, they stayed around for a while, or they came around for, a brief period of time, that had a role in where I am right now. And it feels like this year was just the year. It feels so significant to me.
yeah. And, to point out too, with the significance of Mercury and that message and speaking that truth, that 10th house Mercury in Leo of authenticity is getting the opposition from Pluto.
Pluto. Yep.
So, do you attribute
Yes.
some of this
Yes.
transformation to that
Yes.
transit?
Yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Aaron, I want to take you back to the eighth house, because and fourth house, because a lot of family stuff has been coming up. A lot of family stuff.
Mm,
I've been how do I want to say this? Standing on my own, and not conforming to what the family wants or the family needs. I mean, I've been sitting out of certain family obligations, and I know this is being broadcast, but my sister and I have a bit of a strange relationship right now. And it's like, I don't care.
mhm.
And I don't mean I don't care, but it's like,
Yeah.
I have to be true to myself. I have to be true to myself, and I'm not gonna do things that because we're family, because we have to stick together. No, if rights were wronged, then
Yeah.
I need to say that. I need to
Yeah.
speak that there have
Mhm.
been some things that haven't gone well.
So
Yeah.
I want to point
Good for
out,
you.
I hear you saying a lot about your way of speaking and that having been, recently changed, as in you're kind of coming into your own with speaking your mind, communicating, right? Like
Yes.
how you feel you should communicate, which, yeah, you got, Mercury and Leo. So that seems like a great, way to come into your Mercury, because that's what your Mercury kind of is motivated by, right? Like
Mhm,
actually being heard. But if you look at by house, if you look at your third house, that's Capricorn.
mhm,
So then you got, and it's vacant, right, in your nativity. So then you got to look to Saturn to get information about your way of communicating. And what do we see there? We see Saturn conjunct Chiron. So you're literally, your wound is in, your
mhm,
third house anyway. It
mhm,
Uh,
brings you, you got to go from your third house. You got to look at your fifth house to get the information about your third house, right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
there you have that primal Chiron wound
Yeah,
associated with Saturn.
and the
exactly.
sister, right? The
Yeah,
sibling,
yeah,
3rd house.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So, yeah, it's been this year has been, I think I've been more in tuned to who I truly am, and following the patterns of what's happening in the astrology and how it's affecting my chart,
Mhm.
and leaning a lot more into it, leaning a
Mhm.
lot more into it. Because I'm also getting more knowledgeable about and understanding it as well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how it all plays out.
What's your relation been to Neptune, would you say?
Um
Just like in your life in general?
It has been a little bit illusionary. I mean, probably more so. I mean, I'll say a little bit of a fogginess about who I am, who I really am, and how I want to show up. There was a little bit of that, or a lot of bit of that, and but
Like
I'm
early in
also
life or
no, later in life. I think I tried to express myself more authentically younger, and I felt like I was boxed in. I feel like as I got probably when I hit my 20s and I got more into the workforce and the conformity of who you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to present yourself and the things you're not
Mm.
supposed to do, or the thing I think it sort of happened there. I think a lot of I find like my conditioning really happened later in life than early in life. I think I tried to be more who I was earlier in life than later in life, and then I felt like I was boxed in or shut down,
Mm.
and I think that I'm coming back to who I really am now.
that would have been
That's
your first Saturn return.
my first Saturn return is really interesting because it was I got married. I got married around the time of my first Saturn return, and and it was I'd say uneventful other than the fact that I got married. Like I didn't feel like anything significant happened in my life other than getting married.
At what point did what I mean is you were saying like early in life, you were just easily, like you expressed who you were easily without, it wasn't confused, but I heard you saying that it wasn't until later in life, AKA adulthood Saturn
Yeah.
return, that it got confused.
Yeah,
Was your
so
marriage part of that, would you
I don't
say?
think it was my marriage.
No?
I think it was
Mhm.
more the performing in the corporate world. Like and
Uh,
having to fit like
10th
the
house.
PowerPoint, the PowerPoint presentations and do this and you get promoted, do that and you get, you don't get your raise. And so I was conforming more to how I needed to
mm.
perform in order to get
Mhm.
recognized, in order to, and now that's not, I've reversed all that.
And along
It's,
comes Pluto.
yeah,
And then along
exactly.
comes Pluto from the underworld in Aquarius saying, "Hey, you forgot something. You lost something, maybe the
Yeah.
individuality and it's time to reclaim it." And the transformative aspect of of that and returning to, which I want to point out too, that your eighth house, the ruler of your eighth house is Mercury, and that your eighth house ruler is getting the opposition from Pluto as
Yeah.
well. And then, enter some of the themes around transformation that because I know that you work with a lot of transformational energy and helping people to transform
Mhm.
from almost this militant corporate structure to something that is much more authentic. So you've carried that process and that, I'll say, even healing, I imagine. And this is
Yes.
where I really want to hear from you with Chiron and what this last year has been about for you as well, because it goes deeper than just a mindset change, doesn't it? I mean, even
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
the heralding, or the one that's the harbinger of all of this is Mercury, it's something much deeper has been happening for you on an emotional level. And without throwing too much astrology in the mix at one time,
Yeah.
the Saturn squaring your moon and the family stuff that you mentioned, and kind of what's happening for you emotionally and all of that. So I mean, it's so, there is so much, and it's
Yeah.
so complex. We could probably talk about it for
Yeah.
hours because it's a lot that you've
Yeah.
been going through.
Yeah. And so when last year, I obviously I do my own year ahead, and I knew what was coming. I knew the Saturn square moon. I knew the second Saturn return. So I kind of knew, and I had dates and I had time frames, but a lot of times, you don't know how it's really going to play out, right?
Right.
We don't have a crystal ball.
That's right.
And so I'll just share with you, like, when just trying to think back. This was May. Yeah, May was when Saturn, it was around May that Saturn, before that, wait, May was when Saturn entered Aries. So it was probably the April, May timeframe when
Mhm.
Saturn was really strong on that 29th degree.
Uh-huh.
Um, I started to feel more constricted. I really did. I felt like the earlier part of the year, I was moving and things felt a lot lighter. And then here came Saturn, hitting my natal Saturn. I'm just trying to recall everything that sort of happened. I was getting a lot more serious about my money, for sure. I started to,
Mhm.
I like to spend money. I like to, so, but I started to do more of the budgeting things and more in looking at what was coming in, what was coming out. Um, what I do want to share, which I think is really important here, is I also, when I recognized that Saturn was moving into Aries, my sixth house, I also knew that I needed to stay on top of my health matters, right? And
Mhm.
so, and I don't mind sharing this.
Yeah.
I was being followed for several years for high risk breast cancer, and so every 6 months I would either get a MAM check or an MRI check. And so it was coming up to that point where it was time for the checks. And interestingly enough, the first MRI failed. They had to call me back and said the machine wasn't working. And I really didn't want to go back. I was like, you know what? A breast MRI is not fun. And I remember, like, no, Saturn and Aries, I gotta go. And I went, and
Mhm.
they found cancer.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now I have this cancer diagnosis, which is okay. It's early stage, and I'm having surgery next week. But I remember taking that seriously. I remember, like, okay, Saturn wants to make sure that, you're healthy and your energy's clean and, all those things. So that was, I would say, I almost didn't go. I almost didn't go because it was just inconvenient. Um,
Right.
the Chiron, without getting too personal, I mean, I have felt, a lot, and Susan knows my romantic life. I've felt a lot of abandonment, from in that way. I felt a lot of insecurities in that way. But I think a lot of other things that were playing into my chart, not just the Chiron, helped me to work on that Chiron wound. So it wasn't like when you asked me what happened 10 years ago when it was activated, I think it was always present, but everything else that was happening was also helping me to really understand it and to really work on it, if that makes sense. Um, I'm trying to think, if there was another pivotal point where, when I hit my, and I don't know if you follow the perfections, but I follow them pretty tightly. I went
Mhm.
into a perfection 12th house, Venus ruled Libra, perfection year on my birthday in July, and
This past July, right? This past July?
I literally felt like I was in, like, cement, that every time I tried to do
Mhm.
something outside, like, whether it was to launch something in my business or, create, it was like, no, like, I was constantly being pulled back in.
Mhm.
And now, and I was supposed to be speaking at a big meeting in the city on the 17th of December. Somebody asked me in August, "Are you available December 17th?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got nothing going on in December." And I was so excited for it. I started preparing for it a couple months ago, and I'm not gonna be able to do that because I'm gonna be having
Mhm.
surgery on the 10th. So I feel like also there's this Libra 12th house, Venus ruled perfection year that's still keeping me behind the curtain.
Mhm.
It's
Wow.
keeping me behind the curtain in some respects, because next year I'll be in a first house perfection year and
Right.
Jupiter will be in Leo. Both of those actions happen on my birthday.
Mm.
Jupiter
Oh,
enters
wow.
Leo on July 1st, and I'm in a first house perfection year on July 1st.
Wow. Wow. Interesting.
And so
And it's wild.
My Mercury's gonna get, and I think Pluto is gonna get even closer to opposing my Mercury around that time.
Yeah, Pluto will be at 4 degrees and retrograde, so it will have been, in a pretty tight
Yeah,
opposition to your Mercury leading up to that, probably stationing within, like, a degree of that. So,
yeah,
literally hovering in an opposition for quite some time over that 8th house and the 11th house ruler of Mercury in the 10th. And around that same time, July is gonna be a wild month of 2026 because, Uranus will be moving into a pretty close orb to conjunct Venus,
yep,
your 8th house Venus in Gemini. So that's that's 2 pretty significant, big players aspecting your personal planets and your ruler of your 8th house. I
yeah.
mean, and planets in your 8th, you know? Um,
So if I can just, like, speak in, like, regular, I feel like I'm being
yeah.
held behind the curtain for a little while for a reason.
Mhm, mhm.
I don't,
Yeah.
maybe there's more healing work, maybe there's more, simmering, more, incubating, more, chrysalis work doing. I don't, I'm just, that's what I'm intuitively, and where you said, even with my Mercury, between, like, I feel like a lot of times I lean into that Mercury from an intuitive and a visionary standpoint too. And I feel
Mhm,
like this is all, like, really purposeful, like how this is all unfolding now. Um, I believe it's purposeful. I believe I'm resting for the rest of the year into early next year for a reason. I mean, I'm gonna have another surgery sometime probably in the spring, but, um, not until the summer, I don't think is really gonna be the true
mhm.
I feel like it's a rebirth. I really do feel like it's a rebirth and a renewal.
So can you I love that, and can you take the time I mean, have you fully how are you feeling about that? Like, are you going to because so much of your life and your livelihood and your identity has been, to a large extent, to the outer world. So to continue to be pulled back in, with Scorpio rising, you're
Yeah.
obviously and water, sun, you're an introspective person, I imagine, and you're a self-aware person, but because you've done so much out there, are you sort of approaching this as giving yourself full permission to
Mhm.
be off grid
Yes.
until then without putting that pressure on
Yes.
yourself to
Yes.
externally produce or externally,
Yes.
um
Yes,
yeah.
I've surrendered. I've completely surrendered, so there you go, Pisces. I've completely Pisces North Node, I've completely surrendered to the fact that, this is a time for rest and recuperation, and I've put trust in that I'm taken care of. I will be taken care of.
Mhm.
I will be
Mhm.
fine. So, I have no client work after the 9th. I'm shutting down for the rest of the year. I've been very transparent about that. I haven't booked anything yet for January. So if I'm starting to book, it'll probably be the second week of January. And I think another big thing is people are asking me, how can I help you? And I'm telling them how they can help me.
Mm,
Which
mm,
which is I've always been the caretaker, right, or the caregiver. I've always been the one that's been putting out and, there you go, Cancer Sun,
mm,
right? I've always been the
mhm,
nurturer. I've always been the one that's taking care of everybody in the family, everybody around me, and now it's like they're coming to me and saying, how can I support you? How can I help you?" And, I said, Set up a meal train." So a meal train set up and, "Would you want me to come down? You want me to stay with you?" "Yeah, sure, come down." So
mm,
those kinds of things. I'm allowing people to take care of me, which is not
mm.
hasn't been my true nature. It's always been the other way around.
Wow. Wow. I bet that feels really different.
Well, that's the divine feminine side too, right, Susan? Like I've been the one that's been in action mode and creating and all that. And for
Mhm.
my own balance is I've got to be the one to rest and recover. And surprising some people have been surprisingly surfacing and showing
Ah,
up in that way.
really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
our friend. We'll talk about that later.
So those Scorpio risings keep their love life so private. Yeah.
um, but at the same time, my sister disappeared.
Oh, did she? She's kinda gone AWOL, has she?
Yeah, because we had a little bit of an argument, and now she's not calling me.
Oh, wow, wow, interesting. Yeah,
So whatever.
yeah,
But I'm
at
okay.
the
I'm
time.
okay. I'm okay. So Aaron, what else you got for me?
Oh,
Is
I
it?
was just thinking about with the asteroid goddesses came up again, and then I remembered you have Mercury Vesta
Yeah, that I do know.
conjunct
Mm,
in
Yeah.
Leo. So I just
Mhm.
wonder with Vesta, all this talk about Mercury. I mean, it seems like the idea of what Vesta is sort of becoming more to the forefront for you. Like it's becoming more. You're talking about how like what you need. You being the Cancer Sun and you being the one that's always caring for everybody, and now you're letting people care for you. It's like, okay, so you're paying attention more to your needs now. And that's kind of
Yes.
like Vesta, right? Like your
Yes.
internal flame.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and even yes, that and I also the way that I've seen it is using my voice is also a way for me to keep that inner flame going because when I speak, I really feel lit. Like I've always in my early days, like even in corporate or when I first started my business, I always enjoyed public speaking. And then after COVID, I don't know, COVID really changed the world. And we all were doing like a lot of online stuff. I don't do as much public speaking like I used to, like literally physically in a room, standing up in front of people. That's why I was so looking forward to going into New York and doing that. That was gonna be like my first big public speaking event in a
mhm,
really long time. I've done a lot of podcast interviews, but I feel like Vesta is also coming out in a public speaking way, for me anyway.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah,
You feel that too, knowing me as long as you have?
yeah. Are you talking to yeah.
Yeah,
I do, and it's interesting because it feels like you said about being kind of in an incubation or a healing place, that what you have the way that you use your voice once this transformation and this healing process and this healing journey that you're kind of, you're a little bit I picture almost like the underworld, right? Because there is like with Uranus in that 8th house on Venus on the ruler of, there's like the sense that you're going into very unknown territory, or there could be a feeling of the unknown is overwhelming. But I hear so much of that Sagittarian moon, right? Even though you've been battered by the Saturn square, like the Saturn square has been really challenging probably all of your emotional resources, your financial
yeah,
resources,
yeah,
stripping down. We've talked about that a little bit about, kind of stripping you down to like bare bones of like, what do I, you know, what do I really need, like, on a
Mhm.
material and a but being that second house ruler and how you make your money, and the second house is the mouth, it's the voice, and so when you have a prominent second house like you do with the moon and a Jupiter ruled kind of teaching sign, it's, it says that whatever you have to say after all this, it's going to be profoundly different, I think,
Yes. Yes.
than all that you have had to share with the world
Yes.
before. And so it's important, to honor whatever this phase is without trying to and I see you being so much more in your feminine, and I don't mean that to be in a mass, but you are in a receptive state in life and in the way that you're approaching everything, that you're allowing for that support and that transformation to happen, and you're kind of like open to receive it, and it's very apparent and it's very visible in the it's like that loving energy that I think is part of you and always has been, that in some ways you've protected,
Yeah.
you're allowing yourself to, like, feel
Yeah.
safe showing that side of you, you know? You're kinda
Yes.
coming out of the crab shell a little bit, but
And
in a
that's
good
and
you know?
and that's the Chiron, right? So the Chiron, like having that wound around, um, I not being able to express myself or feeling rejected or feeling abandoned or, however it did show up for me in life, I feel like and again, it's the timing of all this. Think about it. That Saturn station direct right on Chiron.
Mhm,
That just happened on the 27th, with all
mm,
of this stuff happening in my life.
mhm,
So, and good riddance, I can't wait till Saturn moves out of Pisces and moves into
mm,
Aries. I'm just like, so much Saturn in Pisces for me. But, my mother said something to me yesterday, which I thought was really interesting. She came with me to the surgeons. I had my pre-op meetings yesterday, and she said, "Barbara, you should keep a journal." And you should write, like, what you're going through because, like, this is my mother. She's like, it may be helpful for your business, like, to share what your experience has been." And I thought that was, like, that's pretty
mm,
profound for your mother, right? To actually
mhm,
apply something like that to, like, your business. Like, she said, "You should think about, like, just journaling this all." And so maybe, I mean, maybe that becomes part of, like, how I
mm,
had to step back and how I had to trust and surrender and allow other people
mm,
in. It's not easy for me to let other people in, right?
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Cancer
yeah.
Sun.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. So, yeah, it's been
Scorpio rising.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, both of those. Yeah, when you
yeah,
look at you elementally, you're a lot of water.
I
Like,
am.
um, a
No
lot
earth.
of things. It's like the overwhelmingly, I would say, for you,
Yeah, yeah,
water. Because well, speaking of the Chiron Saturn in Pisces, Neptune, right, conjunct your ascendant in Scorpio. So there's
mm,
it's just water to water there, you
yep.
know?
And then my sun and Jupiter
Mhm.
in Cancer. Yeah, there's a
And
lot of
and and the moon, I mean, the moon is already watery, you know?
yeah.
So it's like,
mm.
yeah. So
So it's interesting because on the 19th, when we have the new moon in Sag, it's activating my moon. I don't know if you picked that up.
It's on the same degree
Yeah,
as your moon, right? Like,
right
very
on the same
close?
degree. Yeah. I think
Uh-huh.
it's
Huh.
and I've got a loosening of the bond in, Sagittarius, uh, in my spirit on, December 6th.
Hmm. I see. Yeah. Yeah. So, do you feel like this is professionally and financially related to earning in during this moon cycle?
It
With
could
that
be.
still being in the second house?
It could be, but yeah, it could be,
Or
changing
resources in general?
how I resource myself, I think physically and financially, I do.
Mm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I mean, I've been looking at my business model very differently too throughout this process because what I've come to realize is how much my income is dependent on me and my output. So now I'm starting to think of
Mm.
other ways of bringing in income because, like, you just never know what's going to happen, right?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be something to dig into for sure because it's with the foundational aspect of so much changing and quickly.
Mhm. Yeah.
um, there might be some pretty big decisions that you make around how to feel that sense of security with the second house. And
Mhm.
um, you know, yeah, I'm curious, like, if you see any big changes on the horizon with that, any big possibilities of it just seems like whatever it is that, with the second Saturn return that because it's squaring the moon, your whole concept of security is changing
Mhm.
drastically.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and perhaps your financial landscape, although I think with Uranus in the 8th house, there's going to be a lot of unexpected, unseen support coming your way too, you know? Um,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. We'll see. It should
mhm.
all unfold very interestingly. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about you said that they were monitoring you for high risk.
Yeah.
Is that what they found? Was it a high?
So back, I don't know if you remember back in 2022, 2021, they
Mhm.
found non-cancer, non-cancer cells. And so I had the
Yeah,
lumpectomy.
right.
And they were high risk. They were considered high risk. So
Okay.
with that, after the
Okay,
biopsies,
okay,
that
okay.
they followed me every 6 months because of my increased risk of getting breast cancer. So every 6
Mhm.
months I went for checks, and in 4 years I've had 4 biopsies and a surgery. So
Mhm. Yeah.
I've had 4 years of this. So yeah, so I'm taking an extreme measure this time.
Approach to
Yeah,
healing,
yeah,
right, to
yeah.
and that is so that's good. I'm glad you kind of I just wanted to clarify that because the type itself, the diagnosis itself is not like an aggressive kind of, uh,
No,
type. It's
this one because it was caught early because I've been on top of my checks.
Mhm. Thank you,
Um,
astrology.
Thank you,
Yeah.
astrology. Yeah, I mean, I mean, Saturn. I gotta thank Saturn for that. Really,
Mhm,
and so I stayed on top of things because I knew what the air, everything with when it moves into Aries that it was going to be really important. So they found,
mhm,
but it was cancer, but it was invasive, which means it left the immediate area, but it was so small and
mhm,
so early that it hasn't spread.
mhm. Yeah, so that makes me think of with Uranus being in the 8th house, that in tradition, like in, 200 years ago, right? Uranus in the 8th would be a really, especially while Pluto's opposing the 8th house ruler, but it's like it also is just surgery and like you
Yeah.
said, rebirth. And I, it
Yeah.
happens like clockwork when
Yeah.
a significant planet moves into the 8th, there's usually some kind of surgeries or some kind of regenerative thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I got the news. I don't know I think it was opposing Mercury at the time. Didn't I tell you that when I got the news?
Yes.
Uranus was
Yes.
opposing Mercury at the time
Uh-huh.
when I got the phone call that it was Cancer.
Right, the transiting,
Yeah.
Uranus-Mercury opposition, the first one, I think, or the second one, because it
I
went
can't
across, went back over, and then
Yeah,
it's about to go over for a
I
third
can't
time.
remember which one. Yeah.
But it was to the day
Yeah.
that yeah, that the ruler of your 8th, was, Mercury being the ruler of your 8th, by transit was opposing Uranus, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And so
very
this weekend, Venus is opposing my natal Venus.
mhm.
Mars will be opposing my natal Mars.
Hmm,
I think that's all coming up this weekend. Sag to Gemini. And
cool.
there's one other transit, and then that loosening of the bonds happens.
Okay, have you looked at your actual surgery chart the day
I
of for
haven't. It's December 10th.
do you wanna look at it real quick? Because I
Sure, let's
mean,
look at it.
we're right at about an
I think
hour, and I don't
yeah,
are y'all okay with that
yeah.
time-wise, or
Yeah.
what were you gonna
I
say?
think I looked at it really briefly. but that would be helpful.
Yeah, let's take a look at that just as like an electional chart. So, um, your surgery is happening. Um, you said on December the 10th.
Yep. At,
Okay,
I think it's 8 or 8:30.
in the morning,
Yeah.
December
I know
10th.
the moon's in Virgo. I think the moon's just getting into Virgo,
Uh-huh.
um, at, like, around midnight, like, it'll be in Virgo early that morning. I did look at that.
Okay, 25. Um, all right, and then 8. I'm gonna put 8 a.m. And are you having it in? Where will it be?
Here, in
Uh,
Ocean. Yeah, you could Brick, New Jersey.
Brick, New
Yeah.
Jersey. Okay,
You're
gotcha.
that's where you're in New Jersey?
Yeah. Where are you,
Hmm.
Aaron?
South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we have Sagittarius. Oh, ascendant at 29 degrees. So it'll probably be Capricorn by the time they get you back because I have it 8 a.m. December the 10th, and
Okay.
the ascendant is 29 degrees Sagittarius. But yeah, I'm going to read that as a Capricorn
Okay.
ascendant because they'll probably start. That's when they start prep, right?
Yeah.
Um. So okay. So then we have. Um. Do you want me to share real quick, and then so y'all can both get a glance
Yeah,
of
go
it?
right ahead, yeah.
Okay, and then I'll take it down, but you just so you can get a visual on it too, both of y'all.
Okay.
Let's see. Um, Here we go. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so we've got. Wait, that doesn't seem right.
No, that says December
Okay.
3rd, December 10th.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. For some reason, it put the transit chart in there. Let me try that again. But yeah, let's see. Okay, natal. Oh, why is it doing that? Oh well, I was trying to be savvy and pull up a chart. I had it in there. Bear with me. Um, but yeah, so was there in terms of the while I'm doing this, in terms of the astrology of the year, Barbara, was there anything that you feel like was a really prominent or anything that you've been kind of meditating on or feeling like was a key to this year? I mean, I know you mentioned like your 12th house
I
perfection.
think it's the thing that stands out the most for me is this 12th house and just how the second half of the year unfolded for me. And now
Hmm.
I have a greater appreciation for what that feels like, when you're
Hmm.
having a significant 12th house, energetic year. And it's
Right,
gonna be
right.
different. I mean, it's gonna be different for everybody, but, it was, I'll say helpful, but necessary. Because the last time I had a 12th house perfection year, my dad passed away. That was the year he passed
Wow.
away, 2013, yeah.
Mm.
But, everything else in the sky was different. So you know how everything really has to line up differently. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see.
Multiple
So
factors. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna put Saturn as the ruler.
yeah.
Um, um, and I mean, you've got Jupiter in the eighth house. I like that for a surgery, just kind of off the top of, and the
Yeah.
moon too, being in a Mercury ruled sign. And Mercury's in Scorpio. So that's also kind of under the scalpel energy and detail oriented, not retrograde, but yeah. Um, and
Well,
that'll be 11th house.
I'm looking at Mars square Saturn.
From the 12th. Yeah. But you have the ruler of that Mars is going to be that dignified kind of, if we read it as the eighth house,
Yeah.
um, otherwise it's the seventh house, but it's almost like Mars gets that protection.
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think, Aaron? Can you see it okay?
Yeah, well, I'm trying
Anything
to
jump out?
so this is transits for the 10th?
Yeah,
Is that
so this is like it's like an electional chart. It's like what's
Mhm.
going on the moment that, the the day and the moment that she goes into surgery, kind of like what is the energy like on that day. Um, and
Well,
it would be kind
Sagittarius,
of
I mean, Sagittarius rising seems, um, auspicious.
yeah, with the Jupiter ruling it. Yeah, yeah, if you count that 29-degree ascendant, then I really like the ruling Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th. Like that's
So
pretty
I'm
sweet.
curious, when you look at electional, are you do you
Electional, yeah, I
Electional.
think s
electional when because the ascendant does move,
yeah.
like
Mhm.
what's the real time when they start cutting me?
Well,
I'm
they
just
Yeah.
or is what's a really good what's the real the fact that the time's gonna change, right? So I go in at 6 and I get prepped and everything, but what's the real
Okay, so you go in at 6, not 8?
well, I have to be there probably 6:30, and then, the surgery's scheduled for 8:30.
Mm. Yeah, so it's like, is Saturn ruling or is Jupiter?
I know.
Mhm.
That's the
Hmm.
question.
I don't I
Well
don't really dabble in electional
mhm.
personally, so, um, I can't really say too much about it.
Yeah,
Um,
I've learned it, but I haven't really practiced a lot of it.
I know that
So
there's a lot of, like, you have to if you're gonna do electional, then you have to really know what you're doing
yeah,
because there's a lot of pitfalls. You have to pay attention to everything, and, that's personally just not my relationship to astrology.
yeah.
So, just
well,
'cause, like,
and if you're trying
I was gonna say I'm archetypal. So I'm looking at, um, broad themes in meaning,
Yeah.
and for me personally, and not so much about, like, um, how events. We joke, I have the 100 house system. So, like, even with houses, like, I'm all over the place. I can't,
Yeah.
from the beginning for me in astrology, it was like, "Okay, there's all these house systems, and all of them are correct." And I'm like, "That can't be. Like, how can that be?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been, like, on that, question continuously,
Okay.
and my conclusions, are, indeed, they do all seem to work,
Yeah.
and it's like, what are you looking at? And some of them, like, apparently Placidus seems to be really good for timing events, it seems. You know? Whereas, like, whole sign or equal house is more like broad themes in your nativity. So, anyways, yeah, so when it comes to electional, I can't really, uh, I
Well,
just don't do that.
so I hear you, but and I would actually, and this is probably a conversation for a whole nother day, but I would even argue though that if you're talking about timing events or timing transits, that it's not all that different if you're looking at the energy of a birth chart.
Right.
I mean, I would make the argument that if you're looking at a person as a moment in time or a snapshot or their psyche, now if you don't give any kind of meaningful I don't know, reality to an event or a date, then perhaps a chart constructed for that isn't going to be relevant at all. But if a person is born at a moment in time and a person has dynamics within that those planetary relationships, nothing changes with an electional chart other than you're kind of looking at what the energy is and what the manifestation of events initiated at that time, just like if a baby were born at that time, what they might be. So the theory of it, I don't think is any more necessarily even predictive of outcomes as a natal chart is predictive of outcomes, but it's
Mhm.
going to tell you something about the nature of the person, just like an electional might tell you something about the nature of the event, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but so in other words, I don't think it's fortune telling in the way that I think sometimes we might try or kind of where that
Yeah.
can conflict with a natal interpretation of a chart. Um, but yeah, no, I understand what you're saying with that as well. Um, and yeah, there was something else that I was thinking about with regards to that day or the chart itself, but I've lost it. So
Well, that was a lot.
yeah.
Did you enjoy the
Yeah.
conversation? I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
definitely have.
Yeah.
So should we sign off and then we'll close out for today and maybe then kind of log off, say our goodbyes.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
so.
So I'll hit stop recording. So bye everybody. Oh,
Bye.
I'll hit stop.